Hello again. Today we're going to take a quick look at how you apply for a shotgun certificate in the UK currently. This is an area that most people, or a lot of people, will fall down on at the first hurdle because they'll think it's too difficult and it's too much of a hassle. Well, to be honest, it really isn't. Applying for a shotgun certificate in the UK currently is really quite a simple process. Yeah, you do have to jump through a few hoops. And there is some waiting time involved, which I'll go into later, but technically it's really quite a simple process, providing you fit the criteria. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the application form itself, some of the main points that you're going to need to address, and then a little bit later on, once we've done that, we'll take a look at some of the security measures that need to be in place really before you apply for your certificate, I would suggest. Some people will disagree with that. Why pay a lot of money out for a gun cabinet when you might get refused? Some people disagree. Personally, what I did was I got everything prior to applying for the certificate. That's just the way I did it. You'll know probably in your own mind whether or not that you are going to be a successful candidate or not, even before you start. So what we're going to be looking at, first of all, the first consideration that you need to think about, or one of the first things you need to think about, is criminal convictions. Do you have any criminal convictions? You don't need to include anything like parking offences and speeding offences, things like that. They won't, although you need to include them on your form, that they won't really have much of an effect on your actual application. Anything that's resulted in a criminal conviction with a custodial sentence, now that might be something you need to sort of worry about. Generally, anything, if you've had a couple of months, for example, in custody, then you're going to be probably looking at up to 5 years waiting list before you can apply. If you've had anything over that time, then you're possibly banned for life. Anything over that period of custodial sentence, you're going to be tend to have been banned from owning a firearm for life. So with that to one side, the next thing you're going to need to sort of consider that could have an effect on your application is going to be medical history. You need to put down on your form any medical conditions that you have or that you've had in the past. I'm not talking about you've been to the doctors because you've got a bad cold. I'm talking about things like certain diseases, cancers, any debilitating illnesses. They don't necessarily preclude you from having a shotgun certificate. That's the thing to remember. Just because you have a condition does not mean that you're going to be refused. Okay. Mental problems, things like depression and things like that that's gone on in the past, they don't necessarily preclude you from having a shotgun certificate. Personally, from my experience, I think they're more interested in what kind of medication that you are currently taking or that you've taken in the past. The reason for that is that some medication can sort of alter the state, the way you think. Some antidepressants and things like that, for example, can alter your thought processes and things like that. That's what they're looking at more often than not, I think. Okay, so let's cut the waffle and get down to the actual certificate. Sorry, the actual application, and see what's involved. Okay, the first thing you're going to need to do is to apply to your local police force for a shotgun certificate grant application. Nowadays the form is all in one, so you can use it to renew a shotgun certificate or a firearm certificate or the grant of a shotgun or firearm certificate. It's all in one form, and it'll be form number 201. You can download these from your local police force's website, or you can go and ask them to print you one off. However, not all of the pages need to be filled in, particularly in a grant application, because a lot of the pages won't be relevant, so don't worry too much about that. So first of all, then obviously you're going to need to put your name, your address and all your personal details down there, emails and so on and so forth. The second part B, will be your medical history. Now this is where you need to be honest. You need to be absolutely honest here, because if you're not honest, they will find out, and your integrity will be brought into question, and as such, so will your application. So you need to be 100% honest here. So you need to put down everything that you think is relevant, or even things that you might feel that are not relevant. There is a continuation sheet further along in the pack where you can add anything that you haven't got room for. Obviously, it's also asking things like, have you ever received any treatment for depression or any other kind of mental health issues? Yes, of course, you need to put that down. The next thing is the details of your GP. They will contact your GP to confirm what you've been telling them. They will usually send you a letter that you take to your GP, who will then complete what's asked of them, and then they will send it direct, usually to your police force. Okay, so that's page 1. Okay, this second page, part C, is the criminal convictions and offences that you need to put down. Now again, you must be 100% honest here. If you're not, they will find out, they will know, and they'll know that you're not telling the truth. So you must, if there's one piece of advice I could give you, and that's to be 100% honest on everything that you put down on this form, particularly this part. Previous addresses for the last 5 years, so they can check your other addresses as well. Okay, page 3. This one really is partly to do with what you've got already. You probably haven't, obviously, if you are going to apply for a grant. So, firearms details, if applicable. Obviously, they're not going to be applicable if you're applying for a grant. So down there you will put all the types of firearms, calibers, etc., serial numbers that you already own. So that will be for the renewal, really, more than anything. So if you haven't got any, which you won't have, you just write none in there. So the next part you really need to look at is the security arrangements. Are the security arrangements at your home address? Yes. 9 times out of 10 they are. No police state details. Now what do you mean by that? You might decide that you don't want to buy a gun cabinet and you want to keep it in your friend's gun cabinet, who is also a shotgun certificate holder. If that's the case, then you need to put that down there. But to be honest, I think most people would really need to be having them at their own address. It makes the police nervous when you're keeping them somewhere else. Then you just state what kind of security you have: a cabinet, a clamp, a gun room, or other. Please specify. You're also going to need a referee to vouch for you. This person must be a person of good standing in the community, someone who's known you for at least 2 years. People you can use are your GP, for example. That's the most popular one. It can be members of the community, businessmen or women. It can be virtually anybody that's known you for 2 years. There is a great list that they put out of people that are suitable as referees. However, it's not an exhaustive list. Technically, all you need is someone that's known you for 2 years and can vouch for you. It doesn't have to be all these magistrates or doctors or anything like that, because that puts a lot of people off when they read that. They think, oh, I don't know anybody like that.
Doesn't have to be that. As long as they're upstanding in community, they've got no massive criminal convictions, they're a person of good standing, and you've known them for 2 years, doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be a doctor, etc. People who are exempt from being a referee are people like registered firearms dealers, police officers and police staff are also exempt from being a referee for you. But I'm sure most people have got someone that's known you for 2 years, so that part of it should be fairly simple and straightforward. And then for some reason you get a blank page that's meant to be blank for some reason. And the last page is it's optional. It's basically about your ethnicity and that kind of malarkey. You don't have to fill this in if you don't want to. It's completely and utterly up to you whether you do or you don't. I did personally. I don't see any reason why I shouldn't. It just gives them some information about the type of people that are applying for shotgun certificates, etc. So that's the shotgun certificate paperwork sort of completed. You do also need 4 passport size photographs. One of these photographs must be signed by yourself on the back. Another one of those 4 photographs has to be signed on the back by your referee, basically stating that he declares or she declares that the image is a current image of the person named, etc. So I hereby declare that this is a current and true likeness of John Smith. And all those photographs are then sent off with the application. One of them will be used for the photograph on your shotgun certificate, and the others will be sort of filed, etc., in different places. So that's the shotgun certificate application. Now, waiting times. Waiting times can really vary from place to place. Some people, there's horror stories about it taking almost a year, sometimes over a year for it to happen. Don't despair. I live in South Yorkshire, and my total waiting time in South Yorkshire from sending the application off to getting it back was about 3 months. Give or take a day or two, it was about 3 months, which is, I would suggest, fairly average. So it's quite a process, but you can understand why. They've got a lot of things to check, and they need to make sure, you know, the chief officer of police has a duty to protect the public, and that's why they need to be absolutely sure. So what happens after you've sent your application off? Probably nothing for a while. You may or you may not receive a receipt, which currently in the UK for a shotgun grant is £79.50. That's the current price. You may get a receipt for that. You'd probably get a letter saying that they've received your application form. You may not, depends on your force. At some point in the proceedings you'll then receive a phone call from the firearms officer who will need to come and visit you to do your interview and to check your security arrangements. Now, there's 2 things that can happen here. First of all, if you've got your security arrangements all in place already when the officer visits, that's fine and dandy. If he or she says, right, okay, I'm gonna recommend that your shotgun certificate is granted, which they will probably do, then you just have to wait for it coming through the post. If you don't have your security arrangements installed when he arrives for the interview, then he will have to revisit at a later date to check that they have been in place, and then you'll probably get the shotgun certificate handed to you personally. That's what happens in South Yorkshire. So during this interview, what kind of questions are they going to be asking you?
Well, again, that can vary. They'll most likely ask you why you want a shotgun. Although you don't necessarily need to provide them with a reason in the UK presently. You don't need to give them a reason why you need a shotgun, and they will most certainly ask you. And all you need to say is that you want to be part of or participate in shooting sports. You can elaborate on that. I want to go clay pigeon shooting. I want to go pigeon shooting. Both of those are quite relevant reasons why you would need one. Shotgun certificates and firearm certificates are different in that respect. In the UK at the moment, providing you are a person of standing, everyone in the UK has the right to own a shotgun, should they wish to do so. It is up to the police to show a reason why you can't have one. That is the difference. A firearm certificate is the other way around. You have to show them a good reason why you need one, or why you want one. So there's a big difference in the two. So they'll ask you why you want one. You know why you want one. You can quite easily tell them that. They might also ask you where you're going to be shooting. Have you joined a club? They may not. It depends on the force. I volunteered that information to show that I was a person that was thinking about what they was doing. I'd already joined a clay pigeon shooting club prior to sending my application form off, and I'd also started taking lessons with a CPSA qualified instructor. So all those kind of things are entirely relevant, I believe, to your application. They might ask you, they might not, but if you get the opportunity to get that in, then please do. The other thing I should mention about the interview is that you need to be honest in your interview as well. Don't try and be clever. Oh, I used to be army, I know how to handle guns and things. That isn't going to sit very well with the officer. Not a chance. You need to just be yourself. Just be yourself, open and honest, and tell it like it is. Don't try and make out to be something that you're not, because they will spot it. The trained officers, the trained people, they know what they're doing, and they'll spot it in a flash, in a heartbeat. One of the things I said was, I've been in the military, but I do realise that shotguns are a whole different ball game. They're a completely different ball game, and that I was taking lessons on how to handle them correctly, etc. Which was received very well, and I think those kind of things make a bit of a difference as well. Don't say anything that isn't true, and just be yourself. So waiting times again from that can vary, but as I said, mine took 3 months, a little bit, give or take it a day or two either way, from start to finish. And then hopefully at the end of it you'll get one of these that will come through the post. That's the current shotgun certificate with the photograph on that you supplied, and the crest of the force that's issued it. And it's as simple as that. One thing I need to mention is that you don't get that with it. You have to buy that yourself. There's different ones. I just got this because I quite liked it. It keeps it flat without having to bend it like some do. Some fold over like that, which bends it and it'll end up ripping eventually. But this one's good because I also keep my British Association for Shooting and Conservation membership card and shooting insurance in there as well. So it's all together in one place, which is a great idea. About 15 quid off eBay, that's all they are. So there we have it. That is the application process. It's nothing to worry about. Please do not let the process put you off applying. We need more and more and more shooters coming into this sport. We need more people supporting the sport to try and help the sport move along and move forward. It's becoming more and more popular. but we need more people to come into the sport, particularly younger ones, the young shooters, and let's push this sport forward.
Another piece of paperwork that I like is the BASC permission to shoot form. You can download it from the internet, and it's a great little piece of paperwork that you can take to your local farmer or landowner once you've agreed that he or she's going to let you use their land. It's got all your details on. You make 2 copies of it, one for yourself that you keep with you when you're shooting in case anyone comes and questions you, and the second one the farmer keeps, or the landowner keeps, so they've got a record of who's there and what they're doing, etc. So you've got your details there with your BASC membership number, which basically says I hereby authorise whoever to use firearms or other legal methods to kill or attempt to do so the pest bird species listed in the relevant general licenses, such as wood pigeon, corvids, collared doves, etc., and pest animals including deer, game, wildfowl, blah blah blah. So basically it's a really good little form that you can download off the internet, and it gives everybody involved all the information they need. There's a landowner's name and address and everything, telephone number on there, should anyone want to question it. So that's a good thing to do. But what I would suggest, obviously, is even if you're going clay shooting and nothing else, join a shooting organisation such as BASC. You'll end up, if you get a full membership, you'll probably have something in the region of £10 million worth of third-party liability insurance, which to be honest is an absolute necessity if you're shooting, be it hunting or not. So I would recommend BASC. A house alarm is always a good idea. Now, I didn't have one when I applied for my shotgun certificate, but I did have one installed to help support it. So that's always going to be one of your considerations before you apply, the extra expense. I also went the extra mile as well and got myself a CCTV system to help support my application. Okay, your gun safe. Where are you going to put it? Where's it going to be mounted? How big is it going to be? All those questions are things that need to be considered. The first thing to remember is that when you are installing a gun cabinet, it needs to be mounted on a solid brick wall, preferably bolted to the floor as well. But it has to be bolted to a brick wall. It can't be bolted to a plasterboard wall for obvious reasons. So this is where I keep my gun cabinet. It's locked at top and bottom under normal circumstances. I have a small safe on top, which is just for everyday things, and the gun cabinet itself is bolted to the floor and to the wall. Now that's the chimney breast, so it's a double bricked solid wall structure, so they do need to be bolted to those. If they're not, they will fail the inspection. This one holds 6 shotguns, although I only have 2, but it's got space in there for extra ones should I decide to buy some more. This is the other little addition to what's actually required. There's no requirement in law currently in the UK to keep your shotgun cartridges separate from your shotguns, or to even secure them away, which I find really strange considering that the cartridge is the bit that does the damage. These are fairly cheap. This is quite a large one. There's no requirement, as I say, in law to store them in one of these, but I think it's a bit irresponsible of people not to. Personally, I think they're absolutely essential, given that the cartridges are the bit that does the damage. You could fire a shotgun cartridge through a piece of pipe if you were so inclined. But this is mine. I've already put the code in. There's space in there for 250 there, 250 there. Oh, that's 500, isn't it? and another 250 at the bottom. So that's my equipment.
Right, so there you have it, boys and girls. That's the process. Very simple. Please don't be put off when you first look into it by the complexity of it, because it's not complicated at all. I would encourage you to move on with it, to really stick to it, and you will be successful, I'm sure. Well, thank you very much for watching once again, and remember, firearms safety begins with you.